Welcome to In Her Voice. My name is Kelly Covert, and I am passionate about helping women live authentically by listening to their inner voice. Get ready to be inspired by women of all walks of life that have set aside their should-bes and not good enoughs and are standing in their true voice, the voice of wisdom that each and every one of us has inside. You are listening to episode 10 of In Her Voice. My name is Kelly Covert, and I'm your host and guide as we talk to women of all walks of life about how listening, connecting, and living by their inner voice has changed their lives and changed how they interact in this world. Today, I have my very good friend, Dr. Pam Denton, on the show. I am so excited to sit down with her and to sit under her wisdom. She is a friend of mine locally, and we work together often and we coach each other often. And I'm so grateful to have her in my life because she is a huge source of inspiration and encouragement to me. She is also a world-class speaker for life change, founder and creator of Project Woman, Goddess, and Rise to the Top training for women. She's a dedicated writer, facilitator, and speaker on the topics of female leadership, psychic transformation, and relationship change. One of the big things that we talk about in today's interview is how to tune into your inner voice and use it as a navigation system for your life. This is so essential to understand how to make this work in your life so you can really be aligning your actions with your soul's true purpose. We also talk about how to live with goals, but still be in the present moment. This is a challenging thing for me because I want to be living with goals. I want to be focused on the future, but I also want to be present. So this was really good. And then we also talk about the importance of the female form of leadership and how as women, we need to step into the qualities that we've been given and really use those to balance out what's happening in the world. So I really think that you guys are going to find this interview interesting. There's lots of real talk. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. Hey, Pam, welcome to the In Her Voice podcast.
I'm so excited to be here, Kelly. This is awesome.
I'm so excited to have you. It's so nice to be face to face with you. So many of the recordings and the interviews that I do are via Skype or Zoom or whatever. So it's so nice to be like right here in the same room with you.
Yes, we can feed off of each other's vibes.
Yeah, exactly. Which we do often anyway.
Totally.
So I just want to get started right off the bat with you just telling us a little bit about how you discovered your inner voice. Because, I mean, we've talked a lot, you and I, about your story, but I think that our listeners would love to hear that you were not a stranger to your inner voice for much of your life, like many people are. So talk to us about your childhood and what was your experience.
My inner voice was a savior for me. And luckily I was awake enough as a young gal to recognize my inner voice. I had a really great life growing up. However, there was some tumultuous times within my family. And because I'm an empath, I absorbed a lot of the negativity in my environment. So my inner voice would come through as like a coach and tell me to do things, and I would listen. So one of the very first things I remember about my inner voice was its inner push, I call it, to get me exercising and moving through the negativity. And I would go out and run for hours in the country. We lived in the country, and the inner voice would speak to me while I was running and just push me. And I would just listen to it. And its major message was teaching me to be positive, to rise above the negativity in my life, the negative self-critical female thoughts like I hate my body, I'm ugly, I'm too fat. The inner voice inside of me would say, you are good enough, you can run this hill, keep going, you deserve more. So it was this contrast of negativity versus this inner coach that I really learned at an early age. And I'm very grateful for, because it pulled me out of some serious, sludgy, dark times.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think that it's so interesting when we talk about listening to our inner voice. When I work with clients, when I talk with women, I think one of the biggest barriers to listening is that we don't trust it. So this is kind of a twofold question. Why do you think you were able to trust it at so young an age when so many of us struggle with that? And why do you think we struggle with it?
Yeah, I work with a lot of women too who don't trust this voice. It was different than the other voices. This voice spoke to me in a very outstanding resonance, I want to say. Like the vibration was different. When I heard this voice, I would feel uplifted. When I would hear the other critical voices, I would feel downtrodden and depressed. So somehow this voice reached me at a higher level of experience, and I was able to grab onto that. Now, there were ups and downs with this. It was not a perfect path. I would fall into the sludge again, and the inner voice of my positive self would have to pull me out. So I do have a lot of compassion for women out there who are working on this. It takes time and practice, and I always say you have to tune your channel in and listen really closely to anchor into this voice and allow it to become the navigation system of your life.
Mm-hmm. I love that, because I think that it's a lot about developing the trust. And what I tell people is you can't develop the trust unless you start listening.
And practice.
Right. You have to do it so you can start to see that it is going to lead you the right way. So I love that you were able to grasp onto that at such a young age. Talk to us about one of those sludgy times. Like, what do you think happened that took you to the sludge? Do you know? Because I always feel like I am a firm believer that we create our circumstances. Like we create the life that we're living right now is created by us. And certainly, we don't have control over every single thing that happens, but we have control over our reactions and what we do with what happens. And so how did you get out of that place where you stopped listening? And what did that look like? What did that feel like?
I think the sludge was created by the negative voice inside of me. And I believe that my negativity was a wall of judgment. Like I would put up judgmental, self-critical walls around myself. And I think now looking back in time and having coached many women through this, that we protect ourselves with self-critical thoughts. Like it deflects what we're feeling outside of ourselves. So the voice was a leadership voice specifically for me, and my inner voice would tell me to take leaps of faith of leadership, like go get this job, make sure to get your driving license right away, work with these people, teach swim lessons. I would get these instructions to it was very instructive. It would tell me to do things like a parent would, and being a good student and a good daughter, I listened to this voice. Like I naturally was in tune with following it and, like you said, trusting it, because I just felt like it was telling me to better my life. And if I didn't listen, I would be stuck in this depressed state forever. And there was part of me that just didn't want to be depressed and stuck. And somehow this voice got through. My mom actually had to magnify the voice. And we were just talking about this the other day. She said, remember that time that you told me about that I called you at college and told you that you had created this situation? That's exactly what she said, Kelly. And she's like, you've created this and you need to get out of this depressed state. And then my inner voice validated that, and I ended up going to a support group at the counseling center. And my mom basically told me to take action, and my inner voice agreed. Mm-hmm. So sometimes you have to have that outside validation too.
Yeah, and I think just to be open to that, and if it's from people that you trust, again, it's from people that you can be vulnerable with, that you can really share your true self with, they're going to be aligned with that almost always.
Yes.
Almost always. Well, so you talked, I want to go back to what you said about you built up walls because you felt like those walls protected you from your own self-critical voice. So what do you mean by that? So you said that you built up walls of negativity and you felt like that was going to protect you from the self-criticism, but in reality, it almost seems like it was reinforcing that. Can you describe that more for us?
The negative voice retracts. I feel like it pulls us back into hiding and it keeps us behind the four walls of our house, isolated and alone. The positive voice, the inner voice, wants us to connect in community. It wants us to go to the counseling center and sit in a support group. It wants us to become part of a bigger community of healthy interaction. So the walls that I put up were my hibernation. I would go into long periods of isolation, yet inside somehow I knew that I was a community-based person and that this was a depressed place. So my walls specifically took me into hiding. And I notice this about women. We'll retract and pull back. We won't smile at each other or support each other when we're in kind of this negative self-critical space. Life becomes very isolationist. And when I'm in my inner voice, when I'm positive, I'm giving out positive vibes to the world. I'm smiling at people. I'm connecting. I'm wanting to go out and be social. Things like that.
It seems like such a self-defeating cycle too, because when we retreat, when we put up those walls, we put them up because we think we need protection.
Yes.
And so we think we're helping ourselves when really we're hurting ourselves more. And I think that's what I really wanted to get at, is just how often do we do this? Because we're trying to protect ourselves. We're trying to keep our shame inside. We're trying to, have everybody like us and not let them see the parts of us that we don't like. And that's the thing that hurts us most. So I'm glad that you brought that up, because I feel like we don't always realize that. I have a really interesting story. I'll just say it real quick, because it goes right into this line of thinking that as women, when we're feeling uncomfortable, when we're feeling defensive or unsafe, that we retreat. A couple of years ago, I had to have something removed from my face, right around my nose. And I went into the dermatologist thinking it wasn't going to be a big deal, that it was just I was going to have a Band-Aid on my face, no big deal. Well, it turns out like I had stitches. I looked horrible. I had like a black eye. And I was really self-conscious about that. And I too am someone who normally really puts out a lot of positivity. I'm really open. So even when I go to the grocery store, when I go to Target, I feel like I'm still connecting with people. I look people in the eye and I smile or whatever. Well, so this particular day I had to run into Target and I had a bandage on my face and I looked like I had been in a car wreck. So I walked in and I felt myself be inward because I was really self-conscious about that. I wouldn't look at anybody and I isolated myself. I retreated. As I was walking back to the car, I realized that feeling, and I felt so alone. I felt like I'm the only one who has this big thing on my face. I felt like everybody was looking at me and judging me. And I realized that I was the one who did that. I was the one who turned inward and didn't look out and didn't open up. And that was a real sort of eye-opening experience for me, because I think that you're right, that women who are not comfortable with who they are do that. We hide ourselves. We hide the pieces of us that we don't want anybody to see. And what does that do to our soul?
Shuts it down, turns it off.
Yeah.
I was suffering. I can say that my soul was suffering. There was deep emotional pain to be in that place of hiding. And yeah, we adapt to it. It becomes a comfortable place, quote unquote, comfortable. However, the life-giving positive place of being coached by your inner voice, do and make positive changes in your life, is a far better place to live. And I'm so glad that I can sit here today and tell you all the contrasting story, that I lived the anti of my inner voice and that I was able to tap into my inner voice and follow it and trust it. And now it's led me down a beautiful path of being a healer and supporting women in their healing process. So,
well, so especially since you felt so connected with your inner voice from an early age. You said it was sort of like a coach, like this instructor. Do you feel like it's changed for you as you've gotten older?
That's a great question. Yeah, it's not quite as rigorous. It's more business driven. However, my voice hasn't changed. So it's changed its intention, but it hasn't changed its push. It still pushes me to take huge leaps of faith and step out bravely in my feminine power and make a statement to the world that I'm here, I'm strong, and I'm powerful, and that's okay.
Yeah. And I just want to acknowledge you because I see you do this. Pam and I are colleagues here in Syracuse, New York, and I am witness to this brave stepping out on a regular basis. And it totally inspires me.
That's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely inspires me. And so I just want to acknowledge you and honor that in you because I feel like that's what this podcast is about, right? It's about seeing how other women do it and understanding that when we can see that, when we can see someone honoring their inner voice, when we can see that bravery, when we can see that courage, that means that we too have that. And I think that we overlook that. Like we look at people and we put them up on a pedestal and we say, they're so great, I'm never going to be like that. When really it's about acknowledging that if we can see that greatness, that we also have that inside of us.
Yeah.
So now I know a lot about what you do. You do a lot in business and in leadership. And I know that I participated in some of your leadership courses and it's been great for me and continues to be so. But I have also seen you struggle with your message, with knowing what it is that you're supposed to do. And I was wondering if you would be vulnerable with us and talk to us a little bit about that.
I think, or I feel, yes. And when I struggle, it is with the ever-changing landscape of what my inner voice directs me to do. So when you're working with your inner voice, it's not a linear trajectory. There's not a perfect path. And I think what I struggle with the most is being okay with the evolution that my inner voice tells me to embrace, being okay changing, not always being set as the same person, almost, I call it morphing, like shifting, shape-shifting in front of people and reaching different audiences with different messages. So yeah, I have followed a path of inner messaging. I'm a writer and an author and a speaker, and my message has changed radically over the past 15 years. Although it always has the same core truth of honor your inner knowing, be authentic, be true to yourself, the messaging has amped up over the years to really get stronger and stronger. And it's the changes that I've struggled with, the shifts in the landscape.
That's really interesting. So let's talk about that in sort of this idea of outcome and expectations, right? Because I think as women, especially women like us, especially women like who are listening to this podcast, we're smart, we're intelligent, we're motivated. Like we know what we need to do to get stuff done, right? And so I think we place a lot of importance on what the outcome looks like, and we judge the progress by the outcome, or we have expectations, and when those expectations are not met the way we think they should be, then we feel like we're failing or we feel like we've messed it up. So talk to me about expectations and how do we find the balance there?
I'm very intellectually driven. I come from an intellectual family. The perfectionist in me was at an all-time high in college for sure. And then when I went to receive my doctorate, and this puts an is this the right word? Unprecedented amount of stress on women. It's like achieving to achieve to achieve to achieve and wondering if you're ever going to reach your goal.
Yeah.
And it's going to turn out to be fulfilling for you. So I've released as much as I can the expectations on the outcome. And what I believe in the inner voice is that it holds us true to what's happening in the moment, right here, right now, in this present moment. And I hear you say that a lot, Kelly. That's like so true. And so when we anchor into the inner voice, it takes us out of that futuristic expectation. Am I good enough? Am I going to fail? All of that anxiety and anticipation of our goal. And it puts us right here, right now in the fulfillment of being who we are in this moment. And I think that is the beauty of this work.
So let's go a little bit deeper in this. So I believe that goals are good.
Yes.
I believe in vision and living with vision. So how do we separate that out? How do we live with vision and live with goals and be motivated by goals without being attached? How can we be future minded and be here now at the same time?
The strategy that I personally use is holding the vision and embracing the feeling. So I've had profound visions. One of the most profound is as me as a speaker on stage in front of a large audience. And I could feel this person, me, my authentic self. I can hear what she's saying. And I've held on to this vision over the past 10 years, and she's changed. This woman has evolved, like we talked about. It's the feeling that's the goal for me. She feels so real and so authentic. She is my present moment. And so what I do with her is I journal and I meditate and I breathe into the essence of becoming and being that person. And I allow my daily actions to be in alignment with what will put me in that place eventually.
Yeah, that's good stuff, Pam. That's good stuff. So sort of getting into that vibration of what it feels like to have already done that.
Yes.
Yeah, that's so key, because I think that a lot of times, especially when we're in like goal making mode, we're thinking about what we don't want.
Yeah.
And whenever we're focused, even if we have the word don't in front of that, our brain and our bodies, they don't comprehend the word don't. They just have all of the stuff that we don't want. And that's where our energy is going, and that is where our focus is going. So if we can get into that positive vibration of where we want to be,
yes,
then we can start making decisions and making choices and setting goals from that place instead of from the place of where we don't want to be.
That is so true. As somebody said to me the other day, your limbic system, which is your emotional hookup to the vision, doesn't know time. And I say in my work, intuition doesn't know time. So as long as you can intuitively feel the vision or feel the vibration of what you want, then you can attract that into your life. And it's holding that truth inside of you. And I think for a lot of you who are beginning this journey, it's about uncovering that truth. For others of us who are visionaries already, it's about being in that truth. And we call it holding power, being able to hold that in our vibrational system and not let go of it. So there's another piece there where you have to learn how to hold on to it too.
Right. And I think you have to set aside your intellectual brain, because it will say, it wants everything to make sense. And if you say, well, time doesn't matter, that's hard for us to understand as people who are held in a container of time all the time. It's hard for us to comprehend how that happens, or what that's like to say that our emotions don't know time. And so I think that it's almost like when we go into a movie, we set aside our disbelief to be totally immersed in that film that we're watching. We believe everything that's happening during those 2 hours. So it's like we have to suspend our disbelief when it comes to stuff like this. It's not going to make sense. And that's okay. I want to go back to, at the very beginning, you said that you've always been an empath. And so you feel like you take on other people's emotions. Can you talk more about what it means to be an empath and how that affects you?
I believe in my definition that an empath feels very deeply. So we come in already to this world. We are born into this world already feeling a lot, whereas most of the world is on the opposing side, or a lot of the world is on the opposing side, it's easy for you to cut out your emotions and go into the intellectual brain and not feel. Empaths tend to feel everything. And there are certain levels of being an empath. So a lot of what we're here to do is guide that feeling, visioning experience for the people who aren't quite there yet. Because we all have the capability to feel, to be empathic, to be in the heart center a little bit more. It's just some of us came in that way and others of us are developing to be that.
So if that was a skill that we wanted to hone, to develop more, like what could we do to develop that skill, to understand more how people are feeling and to actually feel what they're feeling?
The very first step, and this is going to come from the nervous system person, leader, the chiropractor in me, is releasing tension from the body. And this is from working on thousands of bodies over time as a chiropractor and as an energy healer. We store tension in our muscular system, in our neurological system, in our bones even. And we can become very tight and dense. And we can also become very analytical and heady. So we call it dropping in this work, where you can sink into your body and become more present with yourself. And the first step to that is learning how to release tension. And there are tons of tension releasing techniques out there. There's journaling, breathing techniques, pranayama, as it's called in yoga, exercise, chiropractic, energy work, massage. All of these things can teach the body how to release tension and be in the state of awareness that you need to feel.
You know what? It's interesting because as much as I think about these kind of things, and I go to my chiropractor at least once a week, sometimes more, because my job as a musician is very physical, and anything that, tightens me up from that can affect that. So I really think of my practice of going to the chiropractor as like a physical thing. And it's really interesting to hear you talk about this idea of how emotionally we can carry that tension in our body, in our muscles. And it's so fascinating because last week the boys were off of school, which is always more stressful to me. And I had to work. It was just a crazy week. And I went in to my chiropractor on Friday, and I had all of this weird tension only on the right side of my body, which is very unusual for me. And he was like, "What's going on?" And of course, chiropractors, they feel it immediately. Like, he touches my back, he can feel it. And I was like, "I don't know." It was crazy. So he adjusted me, kind of stretched things out a little bit. And he said, "I need to see you on Monday." So now today, my boys are back in school. I'm feeling light and I'm feeling like back on track, back into a place where I know I need to be doing the things that I have to be doing for me every day. Went in this morning and I was like loosey-goosey. He was like, "You're like a different person." And that makes sense hearing you say that.
Yes, it's during those tense periods that we need the care the most, it seems. Most people, when they're sick or feeling tense, I don't have time to go to the chiropractor or go get my massage. But that's really the time that your body can respond to the connective care. When you talked about your chiropractor being able to sense everything, I do want to do a pitch for this right now, that chiropractors feel connections in the body because we study the nervous system, which is the connector to our spiritual being. So if you're really in tune as a chiropractor, you're going to know that everything's connected and how it connects and how your tension patterns are wired. And then we are trained to help release that.
I think
really cool.
It's so cool. And I will also second massage therapy too. I've been, since January, made a commitment to myself to get 2 massages a month. So every other week I go. And I think that a lot of people will hear that and be like, "Oh, well, it's so luxurious, like all of the relaxing." And I've realized now that this is an essential part of my self-care. This is more important for me than working out, honestly. Like, that is more important. And I think it's this connection to understanding how my physical self is a reflection of my emotional self. So let's talk about that just a little bit. This idea of that our physical, I've never thought of it that way, but that our physical bodies are a reflection of our emotional bodies. How can we be more attuned to that? Like, do you have any suggestions for us to sort of understand what that might feel like?
Yes, I think the most important thing to understand is that there are different vibrations of emotion, and journaling is great for this, as well as emotional. There are different emotional techniques that are out there that are really cool. But emotions have different vibrations, and being able to identify an emotion and breathe through it, like, oh, I'm feeling frustrated, and frustration means I'm hitting a wall. What wall am I hitting right now? Deep breath. I'm going to release the wall. That's frustration. Anger. Oh my gosh, I need to create a new circumstance in my life. I almost said situation. So anger is creativity in disguise. What do I want to create? Oh, I want to create a better relationship with my husband. How do I do that? So that's how we work and unwind ourselves, listening to our inner voice of emotions out of an emotional situation. So the key here is that emotions have a vibration and a story, and we can identify those emotions inside of our body, and then we can actually shift the story by identifying what we're feeling. It's really cool.
Oh, that's so powerful. And I love this idea too, that we don't have to be slaves to our emotions. Because I think sometimes people feel the feelings, and it's important to feel the feelings, but then they stop there.
Yes.
And that's just the first step. So you feel the feelings, and then you say, now what is this telling me? And then what can I do about this? Connecting with the inner voice, seeing what your inner guidance system has to say to you about that.
Yeah. Now, just quickly, now you have power. Rather than being disempowered by your emotions, you're actually empowered by your emotions. And now, ladies out there listening to Inner Voice, you don't have to shut your emotions out because you have the power with your emotions. So it's okay to engage.
Well, so shifting gears a little bit, I know that a big piece of what you're very passionate about is empowering female leadership, and not just leaders who are women, but the feminine qualities of leadership and what that looks like. And your comments about being emotional beings is what made me think of that. Can you talk to us about what it means to be a feminine leader and how we can use what many of us might think as being weaknesses to our advantage?
This is a huge topic for me, and the conversation is limitless. The female form of leadership, I believe, is something that's just lagging behind in our society, in our world, and that women really need to partake in the conversation of defining it, because we own the answers. Our inner voice, our inner being owns the answers. The answers aren't totally apparent out there right now because we live in a patriarchy where men run the show and women are following along. However, feminism has only brought us so far. What it hasn't given us is the space to be female in our leadership and own that feminine grace. And part of that is emotion. I actually sat in a corporate think tank about how men and women relate in the workplace and how this corporation can support women. And one of the things that the men said to the women in the group, because there were men and women in the room talking about female leadership, they said, "We don't know how to handle your emotions. And so when you're feeling X, Y, and Z, we feel scared of you or we feel timid around you." So one of the things that's lacking or lagging behind in female leadership is the understanding that we're emotional beings and that our emotions aren't scary. They're actually creativity mechanisms that we use to propel our life forwards. So when we have healthy, strong emotions and we're in touch with them, we can actually use those to create. So that's just one area, one small area of female leadership that is really important. The biggest part to this is that the conversation about female leadership is really important right now so that we can bring this to the surface in the world and women can lead with confidence in our own authentic way.
What do you see happening in our world when that begins to happen. When women start to step up, they start to believe in themselves, they see that they're worthy, they're listening to what their inner voice says, they recognize they're here as a gift to this world. What's going to happen?
We are going to ask for the world to be a different place. Women are the creators and the manifestors and the visionaries. And men are the doers. So it doesn't make men less than us, and it doesn't cause conflict. It's women rising up to work with the patriarchy to say, hey, we see a different path here. Let's stop destroying the earth and let's move in this way. And we'll stand stronger to our voice. We'll put our voice out there and not back down from it. We'll have more confidence. We'll make more money in our businesses because money does talk. And this more factor will give us the attention and the backing that we need to work in synergy with men to help make the world a better place.
Yeah. Two things. And this is so cool. This thought that I just had, that what you said made me think of it. It's that what we need to do as women is we need to let our inner voice become our outer voice.
Yes.
We need to be speaking out from our heart. And when we do that, it's not that we're going to be against sort of the male way of running things. It works complementary, right? We're going to strengthen what a male perspective has to offer with our female perspective. The masculine and the feminine coming together create a whole.
Yes.
So it doesn't have to be one or the other. But right now, the problem is so many women, and we both have seen this, are trying to do it the masculine way. And they're suffering because of that. And our world is suffering because of that, because we need women to listen to their hearts, to listen to their inner voice and trust it and be fully feminine. All of those amazing qualities that you have, they're important and they're there for a reason.
Yeah, they've been given to us for a reason. The Rise to the Top training organization for the female form of leadership is about enhancing and emerging these qualities. The three guiding principles that I've chosen are creativity, intuition, and collaboration. These three in particular are really important qualities that are missing from leadership. And women that we work with, Kelly, you're in the group, so you know the conversation. They are afraid of the hierarchy and the patriarchy. And a lot of the women who come into this conversation don't even want to call themselves leaders because they don't want to lead the masculine way, or they've given themselves over to leadership in the past to the masculine way, and they're scared to go back into it because they don't want to hurt their body again. So we have to really formulate and strengthen the female form of leadership. And inner voice is one of the quickest, fastest, amazing paths because, like you said, our inner voice can become our outer voice quickly.
Yeah. And I feel like until it does, we are going to feel that disconnect. I think that's why so many women walk around wondering, is this really it? Is this what my life is supposed to be? Why am I not happy? Why am I not living with joy? Why am I not excited about what I'm doing? It's because you have to make that transition of letting that inner voice become your outer voice.
Yes.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. So we're coming up on time here, but I want to give you a chance to talk about what's going on for you. Like, where's your inner voice guiding you today?
My inner voice is guiding me to step out in my power and help more women with my psychic abilities. I came in today and was talking to Kelly about this, and I've been gifted with the ability to see and vision very clearly. I say to people, it's like a movie screen. Download visions for progressive movement in women's lives. So if you have a big business project or you have a gift that you want to bring out to the world, I am being guided to really help women emerge their gifts and use my psychic capabilities to do that. And in the whole matrix is the rise to the top conversation about the female form of leadership.
I am so excited to see you do this and to step out even more. I know I've experienced those downloads. I've been in the room with you when you just get these like ideas. They're like aha moments. Like there it is, boom. And it's so exciting and it's so wonderful to watch you do that. And I also believe passionately that that is a gift that you need to focus on.
Yes.
So I can't wait to see you do that more. It's going to be so exciting. So where can our listeners find out more about what you're doing and connect with you?
You can connect with me on Facebook, on my Facebook page. My public page is Pam K. Denton. And then my website is pamdenton.com.
Mm-hmm. And we'll put links to Facebook and everything, all of that fun stuff. We'll put that right in the show notes on kellycovert.com. So you guys can go check that out under the podcast tab. So if you're driving or whatever, it'll be easy to remember to go do that. Thank you so much for being with me today on In Her Voice. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. And I can't wait to see what you do.
Thank you, Kelly. It's been wonderful. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you guys so much for listening today. I really want to encourage you to go on over to the show notes to check out all of the links for Pam's amazing trainings and things that she has going on. You can find the show notes at kellycovert.com. Just hit the podcast tab once you're there and it'll take you right there. And while you're there, why don't you take a little bit of time, like 1 minute, and leave a review for In Her Voice on iTunes. That would be so helpful to me. During the first weekend that In Her Voice launched, we made it to number 65 in the self-help category of podcasts, which is like a really big deal. And the reason that we got there is because of you, all of you who are leaving reviews. So it really does make a difference and it really does matter. So if you haven't left a review already, click on the iTunes link and head on over and leave a review. It doesn't take very long and I will be eternally grateful. So I just want you all to remember that you are worthy, you are important, and we need you in this world doing what your soul is asking you to do.